Buenos días, buenas tardes y buenas noches a todos y a
Good
todas.
morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies, gentlemen, all the participants of this webinar, during which we will listen to the candidates to the presidency of the ICA. I'd like to, first of all, thank you all and extend a very warm welcome to everybody in this event, an event which is a celebration of democracy. We're opening up our institution to the members. We are contributing to everybody's participation. We are inviting you to participate. And this is an event that enhances the governance of our body. The goal or purpose of this webinar, as you all very well know, is to be able to listen to the candidates for president. The idea is that the members or cooperatives that cannot attend the General Assembly can engage in a dialogue with the candidates to chair the ICA. And for this very reason, we have decided to organize this webinar to give all members and cooperatives the opportunity to listen to the candidates. I'm not going to take the floor much longer. I'm here to chair and moderate this event. I hope everything works perfectly today. I'd just like to say that the presentations, the contributions that we will hear will follow a predetermined order. I believe that the candidates are very much aware of the order of presentations, but should this not be the case, I will remind them when we address the different items on the agenda. It is foreseen that today's meeting will finish at 3 p.m. Central European Time. We're now going to formally start this event. We're going to formally introduce the candidates, and the order that has been determined is a random order that we have established. And the idea is that during 10 minutes, the candidates to the presidency of the ICA explain to us their aims, their goals, what they intend to do, what they intend to contribute to enhance this organization during the upcoming 4 years, what they can offer. The first presentation will be done by Jean-Louis Basel. Secondly, Melina Morrison will take the floor. And last, Ariel Huarco will make his 10-minute presentation to explain why he is running for office. I'm going to give the floor now to our first candidate for president, Jean-Louis Basel. You have the floor. Thanks very much, Manuel.
And hello,
good
everyone.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Allow me first to introduce myself. I am Jean-Louis Basel, and for more than 40 years I have been committed in defending those who need it the most. That means I'm working to promote the general interest of people. After 10 years as a high-ranking civil servant in the economy ministry in France, I defended consumers and contributed to the development of African countries. I received employment vacancies from capitalist companies, but I chose mutuals, cooperative, and the social economy. I committed to this choice in France and internationally for more than 30 years now. My candidacy at the presidency of ICA is not a step in my career or is not there to satisfy my own thirst for glory. It is rather the logical commitment and dedication to a cause gathering us for 125 years in the alliance. While reading my CV, you will have seen that I'm familiar with the diversity of the cooperative movement through the positions I've held and the contribution I've been able to bring in the sectors or in the different regions, but also in the cooperatives I was responsible for. As you have to make a decision not based on words but on actions, allow me to give you a few examples of actions at the service of cooperative. At the international level, first of all, I contributed to the drafting of guidelines of contemporary interpretation of cooperative principles. They were drafted when I was chairing the committee of the Alliance Principles. Several times, I also worked for ICA and regions in order to defend cooperatives that were threatened by the public authorities. In Japan, for example, for farming cooperatives, in Poland, or in many other instances. In my country, in order to fight against fake cooperatives, we created a mechanism of independent audit certifying the respect of cooperative principles. I'm also deeply committed in supporting cooperative startups that combine cooperative work and new technologies such as cooperative platforms, data cooperatives, and also making sure that the common sectors is getting closer to the social economy. I also personally took part in almost all cooperatives, big cooperatives gatherings, and I know the importance of exchanges among cooperators. With the shortage of gatherings because of the COVID, we created a startup, the Global Innovation Coop Summit, with other cooperators. And I'm glad to invite you to this summit on the 26th and 27th of December. Why am I candidate? Because the situation of ICA is worrying, and I cannot accept business as usual any longer, or thinking that we can simply restart the machine by pushing on a button. The deficit that will be presented to the Sevilla General Assembly is only the accountancy translation of the doubts that are denting the credibility of ICA actions at the central level, but also at the regional level. COVID created difficulties, but this is not the main causes of those difficulties. The main cause is the lack of listening to the needs of the members. The most obvious expression of that failure was the impossibility to propose reforms on the calculations of fees and votes that were voted unanimity by the GA in Kuala Lumpur. That inaction combined to mediocre services given to members led to a reduction of direct membership of cooperatives. My country is an example. 3 structures decided to withdraw the membership because they were not satisfied. The question is not related to the economy. It is rather related to a failure to understand and express the needs for diversity of cooperative, be they big, small, local, or global. We need to make sure that the alliance is at your service, is listening to you. It will help strengthen its credibility with countries, with international organization and the public opinion. My first action will be, as a president, will be to meet the leaders of the European Commission at the highest level in order to reach a partnership agreement as the one we have had for 5 years and which brought 8 million euros for the development of the cooperative movement. I would also like to make sure that my work that was started as the president of the committee on the cooperative identity principle is followed up. The Seoul Congress was important. As Sonia Vukovic said, if we do not want to lose the battle of ideas, a cooperative need to reclaim the leadership in the areas of identity faced with big corp and big companies that are having the limelight in the at the G20, OECD and elsewhere. Finally, generational transmission will be important in order to adapt ICA to the different changes. How will I carry out my mandate? I would like it to combine technical skills, respect for diversity, transmission of know-how with a personal commitment and a deep sense of responsibility. All of those who know me will know that I always want to respect the different points of view while making sure that there is a mutual respect. For me, the principle of cooperatives, one person, one voice, is not only about voting, it is also about discussing, it is also about deciding together. And those abilities will be put at the service of the cooperatives so that all cooperatives can express themselves at the General Assembly. Through my experience, I learned that union is a strength for cooperative if we can go beyond our discrepancies. I would like to pay a tribute to all the other candidates and making sure that I respect them. I will make sure that I carry out my mandate with the required time, the required energy. I am supported by all the cooperatives of my country, and we have the young generation being able to substitute me at Coop FA. I will be at the service of all the movements. ICA is not a company for me to fly over the world and take pictures. I will limit my physical travels for collective meetings at the service of the international movement. In other cases, we are lucky enough to have technological tools to maintain and develop relationships within the group. This webinar is case in point. I will do everything I do to defend cooperatives at risk, and I will also contribute to reclaim our pride as cooperatives by sharing our voice in all international platforms where we can make sure that our cooperative identity shines. I'm of course available to answer all the questions that you would like to put to me, and I would like to thank you deeply for your attention.
Muchísimas gracias, Jean-Louis, por el tiempo.
Thanks very much, Jean-Louis, for sticking to the allotted times. You've only used up 7 minutes. Well done. Well done. It's very important that we do not exceed the allotted times. And now we're going to give the floor to the second candidate, Melina Morrison.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'd like to also thank my fellow nominees tonight, Ariel Guarco and Jean-Louis Bancel. It's quite an honor to be on this webinar with you all tonight. So good evening and good day, cooperators. My name is Melina Morrison, and I'm coming to this webinar from Australia, where it's the evening now. I'm honored to be the nominee for the Australian Cooperative Movement for ICA President. I'm the Chief Executive of the National Apex Body for Cooperatives in Australia, the Business Council of Cooperatives and Mutuals, and I hope you'll consider my nomination for ICA President at the General Assembly in Seville. I've worked for more than 2 decades in the cooperative movement, both internationally and in Australia, dedicating my time to raising the profile of cooperatives and the cooperative movement. I'm passionate about cooperatives and the positive impact they have on the economy, on society, on people and the environment. I believe we are at a turning point where we can elevate our movement to receive the recognition and influence it rightly deserves. The global pandemic has taught people from all walks of life about the power of cooperation. And only by cooperating has the world been able to respond to the health crisis. We know that the climate crisis is also threatening the survival of the planet. Everyone is called upon to respond now with their version of human-centered prosperity, the equal distribution of wealth and environmental care. People, politicians, and business leaders have seen the power of cooperation, and they are making it their platform. So with all the world focused on cooperation, Now is our time to shine. But sadly, cooperatives continue to be disadvantaged by the lack of awareness of our business model, precisely at the time when it should be the preferred way to do business. If I'm elected on June the 20th, my 3 priorities for the ICA are leadership, communication, and growth. I will work with the board and the members to elevate the business model globally to the level of influence and relevance it deserves. And I'll ensure that the ICA leads an effective strategy to bring our business model to the world's attention through communication. I'll ensure the ICA can grow by engaging more cooperatives and mutuals in the work of the ICA, building on the success of the regional and sectoral bodies. I'm an experienced cooperative leader working in this movement and the sector for more than 20 years, and I have led the movement in Australia to form the first apex body for cooperatives and mutuals after heading Australia's Secretariat for the International Year of Cooperatives. As Chief Executive of this body, I've led the movement to many achievements, including a campaign for access to capital, which resulted in new laws and more than $350 million released into Australian cooperatives and mutuals to grow since 2019. I have raised more than $24 million in government grants and assistance for cooperatives in agriculture and care work. And I have grown the membership of the apex body in Australia tenfold since forming in 2013. I'm now leading a project to develop the first reporting framework for cooperatives for environmental, social, and governance standards, or ESG. And my previous work with the ICA includes editing the ICA Global Digest for more than 5 years and writing the communication strategy for the Blueprint for a Cooperative Decade. I was engaged to write many strategic communications plans for the ICA and assist the ICA's media campaign in the International Year of Cooperatives to shine a light on our business model. My own background in Australia is growing up in a small island state called Tasmania as part of a large family, and I studied law and arts at the University of Tasmania. Now I live in Australia on the mainland in Sydney with my husband, who is a journalist, and my daughter, who is a nurse. I have also lived and worked in the UK for many years, and I hold Australian and British citizenship. I came to work in the cooperative movement because of the values they stand for and their purpose. Cooperatives have proven they are the true sustainable business type, always with an equitable business purpose that has never been more relevant. Cooperatives are well placed to help solve the challenges we face, but we can only achieve this if we're taken seriously by decision makers and opinion formers. And that's what we need to do now. The ICA needs to respond radically and rapidly to this challenge. And I believe I can provide the leadership we need, and together we can unleash the power of cooperation. The ICA needs energetic leadership. We should be at the top table in global conversations with governments, opinion formers, and international organisations, demonstrating clearly what cooperatives can do and why cooperatives should be treated the same as any business type. We share strong values, but strong values without good communication wastes our opportunity to shape the global conversation. I'll bring my proven communication skills to ensure that together we can promote cooperatives effectively and consistently in all parts of the world. And to compete successfully, we need to grow. We need to grow cooperatives, grow the alliance through membership with primary cooperatives, and grow awareness of our way of doing business. In delivering this ambitious but important program, we need to recognise the strength in the diversity of our cooperative regions. The Asia Pacific has the fastest growing and most dynamic part of the cooperative economy, and Asia Pacific can now boast a real leadership role by spreading best practice across the whole region and globally. Europe, as the birthplace of cooperation, has a heavy responsibility to lead and nurture newer cooperatives around the world by engaging the largest and most established cooperatives in the work of the ICA. The African region, with the largest projected population growth and fastest developing economies, demonstrates the importance of cooperative development in real time. By working in partnership with African cooperatives, all regions can help to build true sustainabilities in these economies. The Americas have the advantages that include some of the strongest cooperatives globally, as well as some of the most facilitating legal and policy environments for cooperative development, so that there is much for the rest of the world to learn from and share from this important region. Finally, I want to stress my commitment to engaging with young people who represent not only the future of our movement, but now. Youth are now, and we need to connect deeply with the idealism of young people to build a better world. Young people want from business what co-ops deliver, but too often they do not discover or see the cooperative business model. Working in partnership with the Youth Committee, we will develop a communication and capacity building strategy that inspires younger people to use the cooperative model to fulfill their common economic, social, and cultural needs. I want finally to restate the centrality of women's empowerment to my priorities. Women have always been central to the success of cooperatives. Cooperatives gave women the vote before they could vote in democratic elections. And we need a campaign to inspire women that showcases the wonderful leaders throughout the history of the movement, past, present, and emerging. We also need a strategy that holds us accountable to delivering on measurable progress and goals. In partnership with the Gender Committee, we will develop a global women cooperators strategy to inspire, celebrate, and connect women cooperators across the globe and measure progress against agreed goals. Again, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to bring my priorities to you tonight. And I hope you'll consider my nomination on June 20th at the 2022 General Assembly. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Melina. Se ha ajustado absolutamente al tiempo.
Thank you very much, Melina. You stick to the time beautifully. Ariel Guarco is going to take the floor. He's going to be our last speaker and candidate. Thank you very much, Manuel, my dear colleagues, cooperativists from around the world. Greetings to you. I hope everybody is safe and okay. And I would like to thank the Elections Committee for organizing this space to share ideas and visions for the next 4 years. Melina, Jan Ruiz, my greetings to you. I am sure your ideas will make the discussion deeper and better. And I would like to greet all the colleagues running as candidates. First, I want to say that I'm very proud. I've been chair of the Alliance over this time, and I'm very proud of having shared this experience with all the members who are part of this amazing movement. As a leader and as a grassroots cooperativist, I've been able to see that our identity is alive and kicking. It is a transformative action that millions of human beings take every day in very different socioeconomic contexts. I've seen with my own eyes how our identity is driving forward extraordinary changes in distribution, production, consumption, and using the most advanced technologies in co-ops around the world. I've also been able to witness with my own eyes how this identity is building is clear in the Auxilium co-op, for example, where they help vulnerable migrants arriving in Italy. And this identity is clear in the production on harvesting of coffee in Ethiopia. This identity is driving forth innovative experiences to take care of vulnerable people in several Southeast Asian countries. And this identity, through financial mechanisms, cares for the real needs of people through the cooperative credit or lending system in Latin America. These are a few examples of how our identity is alive and kicking. But these are not just cooperatives within the alliance, organizations that belong and live the identity within our alliance. I'm talking about the mutuals, the trade unions, the chambers of commerce, universities, public bodies. We must continue to strengthen ties with all of these stakeholders to build a global alliance to make sure development really is sustainable in sync with SDG number 17. We've been working with many of these stakeholders. We've actually been leading in the creation of the International Coalition for the Social Solidarity Economy, and precisely it is now when we're having impact in the historical OIT conference, where for the first time they're going to talk about decent work and social economy. In short, after 4 years, when I've been able to travel over 50 countries and personally talk with more than 50% of the members of the alliance, I am more convinced now more than ever that cooperativism has a lot to offer in the face of the great challenges we face. And second, I must say that an international cooperative alliance is strong if the region's sectors and committees are also strong. As many of you know, I chair the electrical co-op of Coronel Pringues. It's a small rural town in Argentina, 25,000 inhabitants. And I never forget, that's where I come from, that's where I belong. And I never forget that the principles of cooperativism allow this little cooperative to be part of the largest business network of the world. That's where I've learned, and that's my path. Cooperatives linked to a federation and confederation. They are part of the regional in the Americas, and through that, the international alliance. That's how you build cooperativism. The federation or confederation cannot exist without the co-ops initially, and without strong regional organizations, strong sectorial organizations, and strong committees, an international cooperative alliance will not be strong. The board holds great responsibility at the helm of the alliance, but they cannot do anything if challenges in each sector and continent are not taken on by specific organizations. That has been my conviction over the last 4 years, and we must continue to work this way. I believe we need a strong discussion, and we need big and small cooperatives, and we need the regions, the sectors, and the committees to be increasingly vocal. And I am convinced as well that your participation must be taken into account for the planning and monitoring of the strategic plan and the relationship between the alliance and international bodies and governments. So we must do the ideation together, but then the policies, the policy execution should decentralize. And I agree, the representation of sectorial organizations should widen at the board. I led the increase from 2 to 4 members in 2017, and I strongly support increasing from 4 to 8 now. The sectors, the regions, and the committees must manage the policies that we have agreed upon. Gender and youth committees must be more visible, and they must be consulted upon several, all matters, not just those pertaining the agenda. And then the training must empower women and the youth in all of the activities. And we must continue to organize the legislative committees and the research committees, which have yielded great results in our last Co-op World Congress. And based on this governance model, the Alliance should be ready to face challenges going forward. I propose working on 3 axes over the next 4 years. First, promote the cooperative identity as the best path towards sustainable development, climate change, social inequalities, precarious job, fragile healthcare systems and food systems, energy fill us with uncertainty around the world and locally as well. If we want a sustainable development, we must choose a business model that is compatible with sustainable development. A deeper co-op identity requires a strong link between our identity and sustainable development. I am convinced each and every one of the challenges we face around the world require a local response built from each and every one of our communities. That's our greatest responsibility and opportunity. With these ideas and proposals, we must face the second axis of work. We must increase our lobbying with international organizations. That's a major responsibility at the Alliance. We've made huge progress with the ILO, the FAO, and within the United Nations, and we must continue to do so. And that's how our organizations, sectorial organizations, and committees will play an ever-increasing role. The World Cooperative Monitor has been key in this task, and we want their role to be enhanced over the next few years to show the full diversity and potential of the cooperative model. And my third axis of work would be to interact globally with institutions. And I'm talking about specific actions towards integration in business, services, education, and the new strategic areas we want to develop, meaning the digital economy, the green economy, care economy, and renewable energies. And finally, we need to make progress, and that requires continue to transform the governance at the Alliance. We must continue to have an open, deep discussion, as has been the case over the last 4 years. Therefore, I invite all of you to share our identity proudly and work closely with international organizations and continue to make progress towards cooperative integration. We need more cooperativism. We need to put our principles into action, and we need to build local responses to global challenges. And once we do that, we will have delivered on our duty to be up to par with the 126 years of history of this alliance. Thank you very much, Ariel. You used 9 minutes. Perfect. Hopefully, you will continue to stick to the times going forward, and we will have time for all remote speakers. And now I'm going to ask 3 questions. Each of the candidates will address the questions, and you will have 3 minutes to do so. Please stick to the 3-minute allotment. If you use less time, it's okay. If you use more time, that's not okay. These 3 questions have been chosen by the election committee out of 7 or 8. Don't remember how many exactly. And we've chosen these by majority. In my opinion, these questions address the widespread concerns within our organization and cooperatives. Now, for this first question, candidates will address first as follows. First, Jean-Louis, second, Ariel, third, Melina. And question number 1 is the following. How do you plan to enable greater cooperation among cooperatives? Meaning, how do you think, or how would you try to make cooperation a tangible reality within our organization? Jean-Louis, please.
Thank you, Manuel. I'm going to try to give briefly some answers to these questions. First of all, I think it is important that we better know each other in between countries and continents, in between co-ops. This is why meeting physically or through internet system is so important. This is why, for example, I've been the co-founder of the Global Innovation Co-op Summit, which will meet in Paris, and we're trying to build up for next year in Canada. And of course, it is important to expand this process. Secondly, we must use technology to involve the young generation on a collaborative work to build up an ICA community. ICA cannot be only an institution, it has to be a community. So we have to work at the ICA level as like a hub, and I'm proposing that we could launch what is called a wiki domain, in which it is an open system on the internet, where we could gather all informations on co-ops that could be shared inside the movement and of course outside the movement. For example, I would like us to publish frequently what I call a doing business report, explaining in different countries how helpful or less helpful are the countries to develop the cooperative business in their frontiers. And of course, we have to emulate ourselves in collaborating, in comparing best practices. And the last but not the least, and I have quite a knowledge on that matter, is of course how to leverage financial means, and it is a banker who is calling for that. Public money, there is some public money we should try to leverage to develop the co-ops worldwide, in developing countries first, but not only in developing countries, and of course, some cooperative money. So that's my concrete proposals and my answers to this question. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Jean Luis. A continuación, tiene la palabra Ariel Wang.
Thank you, Jean-Louis. Ariel, you have the floor.
Ahora sí. Bueno, muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned in my initial remarks, cooperation among cooperatives is an effective measure because our own organizations over time have been building their identities through federations, confederations, and our global home for all of us, the International Alliance, Cooperatives Alliance. So this alliance is the result and the driver of cooperativism. The challenge is for this organization to continue to show its social nature at the very DNA of the organization, and governance bodies, communication channels between bodies, and its role in the big global discussions must be consistent with this virtue expressed in our sixth principle. When I'm talking about putting our principles in action, I am talking about showcasing the value of the very many experiences there are in matters of cooperation. We don't need a silver bullet or a magic wand for something that is just as old as the existence of cooperatives. However, we must continue to adapt and hone our tools so that the regions, the sectors, and the communities are increasingly involved in the possibility of exchanging, institutionalizing, and offering support, solid support over time for this. This requires strengthening the ICIP, which is a space where different knowledge and experiences can be shared to strengthen ethical chains internationally. It's about international intercooperation so that businesses, our business models can grow in offering the safety and reliability and the long-term vision that we have in the framework of this alliance. It means using the prestige of the World Cooperative Monitor, which has been showing the strengths of our business model over the last few years and can offer more information regarding the environmental, social impact and contribution to peace cooperatives make. And it means supporting the intercooperation spirits of the youth who often show the way forward in these matters. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Ariel. Termina esta primera pregunta. Melina, cuando quiera, por favor.
Melina, you have the floor, madam.
Thank you very much. This is a great question because cooperatives do cooperate well amongst themselves. In fact, it's one of our principles. And at the ICA, we have been doing cooperation amongst cooperatives since it is a global network and platform for cooperation amongst cooperatives for 137 years. So we have had a long time to get to know each other. What we need to do now is use that huge history of cooperating with each other strategically, and we need direction and leadership to do this. We know that cooperators and cooperatives fit into the challenges the world faces, and we know that one of the ways they do this is by cooperating with each other. And when cooperatives help other cooperatives to thrive and grow to their fullest potential, the whole movement benefits. This is something that is very exciting to other business movements and to the wider public. And we need to communicate this power through cooperation. We need to identify what key challenges we share and what opportunities we can leverage as a cooperative movement. I would lead the development of a global strategy that recognizes the shared challenges, the shared barriers, and the shared opportunities to identify where these are addressed best in the world and share that best practice so that it can cascade down to the national and grassroots level across the world. We do need to listen to the regions, to the sectors and the thematic committees to hear their top strategic priorities to ensure that we are enabling through the global peak body the greatest cooperation amongst cooperatives and facilitate that by raising their priorities into the international priorities. So it's about selection and strategically managing what are the things that we do to most enable cooperation amongst cooperatives. By providing the right leadership and communication, we can ensure that we enable this cooperation amongst cooperatives to happen at all levels of the movement, from the grassroots to the national to the international level. For me, priorities are really cooperating on accessing capital globally, cooperating on a global communication strategy, and cooperating on trade and business networking, as well as the sustainability goals that I mentioned before, the ESG agenda. If we have this shared vision for growth, it will help cooperatives to identify where their shared cooperation opportunities are. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Melina.
Thanks
Seguimos
very much, Melina. We will now
portándonos bien
move
con el
on
tiempo, por lo
to the
cual
next
me alegro
question.
mucho.
We're doing great on time. Thank you very
Pasamos a la
much.
segunda pregunta,
Okay, let's move on to
cuyo
question
orden
number
de
2.
contestación es
And
primero
we're
Melina,
going to give the floor
segundo
first to
Jean-Luis
Melina to
y
answer the
tercero
second
Ariel
question,
Guar.
second to
La pregunta
Jean-Luis,
es la
and third to
siguiente.
Ariel. The question is as
¿Cómo,
follows.
si tuviera que establecer tres prioridades
If you
para la
had to
ASI,
set 3 priorities for the
¿qué orden
ICA,
o en qué orden usted las
what
situaría y
would
cuáles
these
serían ellas?
be?
Thank you again. So I would like to restate my 3 priorities: leadership, communication, and growth. The leadership cooperatives need has to come from the global peak body. The Alliance needs energetic leadership, and we should be at the top table in all of the global conversations we've been discussing here tonight. At the government level, with the opinion formers, the international organizations. Right now, the world is having a conversation around Davos, for example, the G20 in Indonesia. We need to be in the same level of discourse as business leaders in all business movements, and increasing the influence and credibility of the ICA is critical at this time when people are looking for ethical business models. So demonstrating clearly what cooperatives can do and why cooperatives should be treated the same is part of that communications strategy that's required to underpin the leadership. At the national level in Australia, I have demonstrated I can do this. Communicating the purpose of cooperatives is absolutely critical. So that is my second priority. We do share the strong values right across the global movement, but we need a good communication strategy to not waste our opportunity to shape the global conversation that is happening right now around ethical, sustainable businesses, inclusive economy, and stakeholder capitalism that is now being discussed. We see the rise of B Corps, social enterprise. We hear all of these discussions. Cooperatives must be at the centre of this discourse through a strong communication strategy. My background and my proven communication skills will ensure that we can develop a global cooperative communication strategy to effectively and consistently talk to all parts of the world about our business model. And thirdly, growing and thriving cooperatives requires starting with the ICA itself. We do have to compete successfully as businesses in order to have our social impact, which is indeed the very centre of why cooperatives exist, to deliver the social dividend through a business structure. So we need to grow cooperatives, grow the Alliance by increasing its membership and engagement, by having a clear relevance and value proposition for members and cooperatives of all sizes and sectors to join. And we need to grow awareness of our way of doing business. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Melina. Y tengo que
Thanks very
pedir,
much, Melina.
sinceramente, perdón,
I have to apologize
porque me he dejado la número
because
2
I
hasta el final.
unfortunately
Lo siento,
skipped question number
pero
2 and moved
me he
directly to
equivocado.
question number 3.
Os
My
pido perdón,
apologies.
espero que no
I
influya
apologize.
en en el desarrollo que
I
todos y
hope it
todas
doesn't have a negative
deseamos
impact
de
in
este webinar.
this
Perdón otra vez.
conversation.
Ariel,
Apologies
cuando
again.
quieras.
Ariel, you have the floor.
Perdón, Jean-Louis.
No, Jean-Louis,
Perdón.
sorry, Jean-Louis.
Merci, Manuel. Oui,
Thank you, Manuel. No worries whatsoever for skipping the second question. As I have said earlier, I think it is pivotal for ICA not only to be an institution, but truly a community for all members of cooperatives. I would like us to be more visible as well, thanks to the commitment of as many people as possible through collaboration. I think that ICA needs to offer means so that each and everyone can express themselves and deliberate through institutions, because we have the General Assembly, we have different systems, we have sectors, regions, networks, and so on and so forth. But we need to put into place some circles on some targets, for example, SDGs, and all circles would be led by a member of the board. There are 17 SDGs. We have 18 members of the board. We could do something there, and there everyone could be supported by a youngster who could, well, help them, and this would, well, help training and go ahead in a sustainable way and work for sustainable development as well, obviously. Furthermore, we should invite all cooperatives in the network of international institutions we have for development. We already have some agreements with FAO, with other bodies, and I think about the G20. I was the first one to launch works on the G20 in France, and then we made progress with Australia obviously, but I would like us to go back maybe to World Bank. For years, the World Bank contributed to the development of our system in the 60s, and nowadays we need to get back to these institutions because we do need it. They have money, they have capacities. It's up to us to develop a software, so to say, so that they can help us work on the third axe I want to mention now, sharing with future generations through education. I am myself committed in the institutions. I am a member of the CIMEC board and other boards in Canada. And then there is the Remain chair and Alphonse Desjardins, HEC Montréal, with whom I work. There are many other associations in France. There are many other associations elsewhere. We need to work on education. This is pivotal, and I dream that we could develop a huge international school for cooperative management. I think we do need it. We do need it for our members and our cooperatives. Once again, thank you very much. Thank you for giving me the floor on these projects with the support of each and every one and the commitment of all. I think that truly we can do amazing things in the future, which will make us much more visible in the future. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Jean-Louis. Por último, intervendrá en esta segunda pregunta, que era la tercera. Ariel,
Muchas gracias, Manuel. Quiero decirles que ya he compartido con ustedes mi plataforma de trabajo para los próximos 4 años. Voy a tratar de enumerar las prioridades que harán posible que esa plataforma sea llevada adelante. Mi primera prioridad es que la integración cooperativa se vea reflejada efectivamente en la gobernanza de la ASI y que la cercanía con cada uno de los miembros siga siendo un mandato para todos los que tengamos responsabilidad en el BOAR. Somos un movimiento que pone en el centro a las personas, no a las máquinas, no a la tecnología. Hemos avanzado mucho en este aspecto y lo vamos a seguir haciendo, dándole cada vez más protagonismo a las regiones, a los sectores y a los comités. Que sean estos los órganos que oficien de interlocutores a la hora de encarar los principales debates que debemos dar como movimiento en distintos ámbitos internacionales. ¿Quién mejor que el cooperativismo de trabajo integrado en la ASI y en SICOPA para discutir en la OIT los marcos normativos necesarios para alentar la promoción del trabajo asociado? ¿Quién mejor que nuestras sectoriales agropecuarias y de consumo para proponer a la FAO herramientas concretas de producción y consumo responsables? ¿Qué mejor que el cooperativismo de vivienda con su representación internacional para debatir en todos los foros posibles modelos de hábitat sostenibles? ¿Quién mejor que el cooperativismo financiero representado en el ICBA, que fue reactivado en estos últimos 4 años luego de un largo periodo de inactividad, para incidir sobre el modelo financiero global y así viabilizar recursos de las bancas multilaterales de desarrollo hacia proyectos cooperativos? Mi segunda prioridad es fomentar una mayor participación de los jóvenes y las mujeres a escala global. Estoy convencido que es fundamental una mayor participación y un mayor empoderamiento de los jóvenes si queremos producir transformaciones reales en nuestra sociedad. Es imperioso que los jóvenes cooperativistas lideren, por ejemplo, ejemplo, el proceso de transformación digital al servicio de los trabajadores y los usuarios, aprovechando su expertise generacional y tomando la valiosa experiencia que ya existe en materia de plataformas cooperativas. Con algunos de ellos ya estamos promoviendo un marco estratégico de transformación digital para cooperativas de distintos sectores. Debemos potenciar la energía, asimismo, y el compromiso natural que tienen las nuevas generaciones en la defensa del planeta. Igualmente imprescindible es aumentar la participación y el empoderamiento de las mujeres en nuestro movimiento. En 2017 lideré la reforma estatutaria que permitió que la presidenta del Comité de Equidad y Género tenga voz y voto en el board de la ASI. Debemos continuar incidiendo para hacer que la ASI sea una organización representativa de toda la diversidad del género humano. Mi tercera prioridad es fomentar un mayor desarrollo de la educación cooperativa a escala global. Gran parte de la riqueza de nuestro movimiento radica en el conocimiento acumulado a lo largo de muchas décadas. He visto excelentes experiencias de diferentes instituciones educativas en todo el mundo. Debemos fortalecer esas experiencias, seguir promoviendo el intercambio de conocimientos y aumentar la incidencia en los gobiernos nacionales para que prioricen la educación cooperativa. Muchas gracias.
Muy bien, Ariel, muchísimas gracias. Ahora sí vamos a formular la tercera pregunta, que es la segunda. Y pregunta lo siguiente a los tres aspirantes. ¿Cómo planea ayudar a la ASI a construir al desarrollo sostenible? ¿Cómo nuestra organización, qué tendría que hacer según vuestras intenciones para ayudar al desarrollo a un mayor en cantidad y en calidad, mejor desarrollo sostenible desde el mundo cooperativo? Y ahora cambiamos la pregunta y ahora empieza Ariel.
Muy bien, muchas gracias, Manuel. Quisiera decir que desde la ASI estamos dando un debate profundo con los organismos internacionales y los gobiernos sobre este tema. Nuestro principal desafío, como señala el primer eje de mi plataforma, es promover la identidad cooperativa como el camino, como el mejor camino hacia el desarrollo sostenible. Esa es la principal premisa que hemos defendido todos estos años frente a los gobiernos y a los organismos internacionales, y debe continuar siendo el eje de nuestra tarea. Debemos decir cada vez con más claridad que si realmente quieren apostar por modelos empresariales que contribuyan al desarrollo sostenible, entonces las prioridades de financiamiento deben dirigirse a estos modelos. Señalar, por ejemplo, que las inversiones que han comprometido los países desarrollados para enfrentar el cambio climático deben priorizar los proyectos de inversión que hoy tenemos las cooperativas en términos de energías renovables, de viviendas sostenibles, de reducción del impacto ambiental en la producción de alimentos, en la logística y en el transporte. De igual manera debemos continuar incidiendo sobre la OIT y sus miembros sobre el papel central que debe tener el modelo cooperativo para resolver el problema del trabajo precario, un problema que afecta al 60% de los trabajadores del mundo. No hay desarrollo sostenible con trabajo precario. Debemos trabajar para que la OIT reconozca y promueva y acompañe los modelos del trabajo asociado, que pueden ser gran parte de la respuesta en el camino a la formalización del trabajo. Priorizar nuestro modelo empresario también está vinculado con la transformación que requiere el sistema agroalimentario. Esto lo estamos debatiendo con la FAO y debe ser uno de los ejes de nuestro trabajo a futuro. No hay desarrollo sostenible sin transformación del sistema alimentario, y no hay transformación posible si no toman la palabra los productores y los consumidores. Nuestra responsabilidad histórica es lograr una firme alianza entre los gobiernos, la FAO y el movimiento cooperativo para facilitar y financiar proyectos que faciliten faciliten la transformación del sistema alimentario. Debemos lograr que toda esta agenda impacte en nuestros territorios y que ayude a mejorar la calidad de vida de nuestros asociados. Veo una gran potencialidad en el trabajo que estamos promoviendo desde Argentina con los gobiernos municipales, acompañando la construcción de redes de municipios cooperativos para que gobiernos y cooperativas trabajen juntos por el desarrollo. Estamos compartiendo experiencias con colegas del Reino Unido, Francia, España, Corea del Sur y fortaleciendo nuestros vínculos con el ICA. Debemos demostrar que el desarrollo sostenible es un problema global, pero requiere respuestas locales. Ese es nuestro desafío y nuestra gran oportunidad como movimiento. Muchas gracias.
Muy bien, Ariel, muchas gracias. A continuación, Melina, por favor.
Great, Ariel. Thank you very much. Melina, please.
Melina, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy that this question has been asked tonight because I'm passionate about sustainable development, as indeed you all are, and cooperatives are the best at sustainable economic growth. I think on this webinar, we can agree on that. We have a choice here. We can pull ahead and show that our business model is the best at sustainable economic and social development, or we can be left behind and look like we're on the margins of where sustainability is going. I'm very clear on what the ICA needs to do to provide the leadership and communication to connect people, policymakers, governments, and international organizations with cooperatives as the preferred model for doing sustainable development. Cooperatives empower people to make real social and economic progress, that we know. And cooperative development is synonymous with sustainable development. The ICA needs to communicate that across the development community at the highest level. I would ensure that the ICA develops a framework to enable cooperatives and mutuals to engage with the new world of environmental, social, and governance, or ESG, that is becoming a byword for sustainable economic growth. In Australia, we have convened a group of cooperatives across different sectors who together are developing a message about sustainability that is visible to all. And this is to lift their business model out in front of other businesses to really talk and showcase the sustainability element of cooperatives. There should be no conflict between the search for sustainable development and the prioritizing of the sustainability development goals in all countries, in particular in lower and middle income economies. It is about the behaviors of businesses, about their purpose, and cooperatives have the right business purpose to deliver sustainability, the SDGs, and those environmental, social, and governance standards that are becoming a byword in the commercial business sector for sustainability. We know that cooperatives raise the standard of living and bring society together. They enable people to prosper and they embed democracy. So they are so important for policy makers and leaders to engage with. We do need to clarify and elevate the business purpose of cooperatives so that they can be seen for their social dimension. I'm from Australia, which is a more developed economy, but we're in a region with a range of economic development. We are at one with India, with China, Indonesia, and the 15 Pacific nations when it comes to cooperatives, because they work in the same way in all of those economies to lift people up wherever they exist. The ICA needs to be a strong voice on the cooperative model as the world's best vehicle for sustainable development, influencing stakeholders to adopt this proven successful business model for sustainable development. Thank you.
Perdón, muchas gracias. Por último, para este bloque, Jean-Louis, por favor.
Thank you very much. Jean-Louis, please.
Merci beaucoup,
Thank you very much, Manuel. Many things could be developed on that question, but time is running. And I think that we should continue our actions. And therefore, I would like to put in the limelight the actions I've undertaken. The position and the role of women in cooperatives is important. On this question, on this matter, I have to explain that at Cooperative Europe, where I chaired a board that was a completely gender equality, gender-wise. There was also a principle of equality of representations with at least 40% of each gender, and I'm really glad that the board of Coop Europe made progress on that issue. I think that we need to make progress at all levels in the cooperative movement on those questions, and I will make sure that this action is continued, as I've mentioned earlier on, for youngsters. Second action. I took part to the Addis Ababa conference on development, where the role of cooperatives was recognized in the role of international development. That work needs to be carried on, hence the importance of everything I explained earlier on development. Third topic. The accountability, the broad sense of accountability. A few years ago, we fought against international accountancy standards that aimed at destroying our model. Today, there is a new attack, and we do not really realize it through the issue of green accountancy and other issues. I think that cooperatives need to have a say. Personally, in my country and in Europe, I'm really active on those issues. We need to make sure that our voices are heard on these matters when it comes to green accountancy and social commitments. Cooperatives need to have a place around the table in the international bodies where those decisions are taken. Third point, the commons, all commons issues. With others, I have created the Cup of Commons in France. The aim is to make sure that the cooperative sector works for the common good and for commons at the local or regional or national levels. That sector with youngsters, with cooperative startups in data area or in other areas are key for the future of the cooperative movement. All that can be developed globally. ICA should not work in isolation. ICA should be a place for gathering, for exchange, where the community of ICA builds together a global cooperative public opinion, a global public opinion where cooperatives are at the heart of all the efforts, where cooperatives are showing the way for human progress for everyone, for cooperators, but also for all those who are not yet cooperators. Thank you.
Vamos a continuar.
Thank you, John Luis.
Con el segundo bloque.
We're going to continue with the second section.
Que técnicos de ACI están recibiendo preguntas durante el desarrollo de esta hora y 10 minutos que llevamos de que comenzamos. Las agruparán porque sean complementarias o iguales o muy parecidas. Serán pasadas a Sebastián Chaliú, que será el que formulará las preguntas a los candidatos y a la candidata. El ritmo y la manera de actuar será la misma. La pregunta tendrán 3 minutos como máximo para responderlas y tendrán un orden aleatorio que yo me he roto. Lo siento.
Order will be random. although I did
Por lo tanto,
break the
seguimos
order
como
earlier,
estaba
and I
previsto.
apologize for
Sebastián,
that.
cuando quieras,
Okay,
formulas
so
las preguntas.
Sebastian, please, whenever you're ready, go ahead with your questions.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous.
Hello, everyone. I'll speak in French. Thank you to all the participants to the numerous questions that have been put forward. I will make sure to reflect them as accurately as possible to make sure that you get the answers that are the most satisfying to you. First question. There were many questions on this topic. How, very concretely, can we adapt, can we make sure that the ICA becomes more inclusive? Including when it comes to the participation, we had questions on the high costs of transport, travel to take part. Also questions on fees. How can we make sure that they are more democratic so as to make sure that we have more cooperatives? And Jean-Louis raised a cooperative public opinion question. How could ICA take into account small cooperatives or middle-sized cooperatives in its efforts, in events, in its fees, in its decision-making mechanisms? How can we make sure that ICA becomes more inclusive in the future? It is a broad topic, but it will help us answer 10 questions on that topic. Thank you very much.
Primera pregunta la comienza contestando Ariel, continúa Melina.
Ariel, please, you will go first, then Melina,
quiera,
and Jean-Louis third. Ariel, whenever you're ready. Well, thank you very much, Manuel. I'd like to reinforce the point I've made a couple of times already during this discussion or webinar. Once again, how do we see, what's our idea of our alliance? Well, it is a movement. It's a grassroots movement. At the base, we have the first degree co-ops, then we have the federations on top, and then a third layer of confederations that are APEX or national organizations, and then there are regional associations that become part of the International Cooperative Alliance. So the ICA must showcase all of this diversity from the angles of culture, linguistics, politics. There are different visions, points of view. There are developed and developing economies involved, and this is what we propose through shared governance among the regions, the sectors, the committees, and of course the board will be authentically representing all of our richness. I've traveled extensively, not because I wanted to take pictures for my Instagram, but because I really wanted to learn what's the reality, what each and every one of our members needs and thinks at each point. And I've been in touch with the co-ops in every country I've visited, and I've seen their day-to-day. I've heard their concerns. And regarding the membership that has been mentioned, I've heard about two problems. The APEX organizations, they don't have the pockets necessary to pay the membership fees proposed by the Alliance. Well, we will have to think about a solution to talk to our members. In fact, the board has a mandate to think about this, and there have been difficulties, and Jean-Louis has been working on this too, but because of the pandemic, it's been hard to find real solutions, real proposals during this period of time. We will need more time. Now, regarding the second matter, how can we include and expand further the grassroots, the base members in our alliance? In the first meeting of the board in January 2018 in Brussels, I proposed to generate a membership system so that they could pay 100 or 200 in fees and expand our base. We're 200 members. This is a very select club. Not everybody can pay, and that does not reflect the democracy our movement strives for. That's why, and it's in the minutes, by the way, if you want to verify what I'm talking about, I propose to allow small cooperatives with low fees and offer them certain services. It was a democratic process. The situation was not ripe for this project to come forward. We didn't even make consultations outside of the board. But if I become chair-elect in my second term, I will insist on this need because it shows that we are more open and democratic and have our ears open to listen to more people and offer better answers and to the challenges that we are all facing. Thank you, Ariel. We're getting more tired and I must insist on the timings. Melina, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So these questions combine the very important question of the sustainability of the ICA as well as its inclusiveness. And I have three strategies for addressing this. The first is the network. The ICA is not separate from the movement, as has been said here tonight. It represents the movement. So correctly addressing how to leverage the network for fullest participation through the regions, through the sectoral bodies, through the thematic committees, and also through all of those national bodies, some of which have been talked about in the chat tonight, that are very important for engaging at the grassroots level, so that there can be representation right up to the global board in a delegated way. We need to leverage this unsurpassed global network of cooperators, billions of cooperators, millions of businesses, to ensure the most inclusive engagement. And it's not simply from having people attend congresses in one place, although post-COVID, it will be very nice to get together again and actually see people for face-to-face dialogue as well. The second strategy has to do with sustainability. Small, medium and large cooperatives should have a true value proposition for joining the ICA. If we have more members, we are more sustainable and we're able to redirect some of that surplus back into more inclusive activities. We need to address the business needs, find out what is relevant and important to businesses of all sizes, and work to deliver those services and those opportunities so that more members join the ICA and increase the sustainability. I do absolutely agree with Ariel that we need a membership formula that works to be inclusive of all levels. It needs to be a fit-for-purpose membership subscription strategy that genuinely recognises how cooperatives, what resources cooperatives of different sizes have to be able to join the membership. But there must be a value proposition for joining in the first place. And the third strategy is a digital activities strategy. We definitely do need to do more work digitally, not just because we've been in a global pandemic, but because of sustainability. It is cleaner and greener than getting on planes. We should reserve some time to meet face-to-face and do that. We can also do that at a national and a transnational basis, but we definitely need a holistic digital strategy to make sure that we can engage no matter where we are in the world, and no matter what our own personal or organizational resources are. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Melina.
Thank you very much, Melina. We're going to give the floor to Jean-Louis now, please.
Thank you, Manuel. I just want to address this question by telling what I've already said, that first we must use energy, everyone energy. I know we need some money, but it's not the money itself that will bring the solution. We need to involve all co-ops who wishes to be involved in a collaborative work. This is why I believe we have to turn to the young generation to better use the tools such as what I call the wiki domain. We should launch a co-op wiki domain in which everyone could share and expand in different languages all information we need to be shared on co-ops. That's the first thing. Secondly is, of course, by using time and energy in listening to each other. So I do understand we need both personal meetings and online meetings. This is not a surprise that the Global Innovation Co-ops that I launched with others are hybrid events. It depends on when, where, and on which topic, but it is important. ICA can not only work by sending questionnaires, lengthy questionnaire asking people what they feel you should be. We should first give the floor to people, help them to build a vision. And the third is, of course, about the diversity in communication. Huge improvement have been made in the ICA in the last year, and we should go further on in languages, in cultural questions. This is why I believe we can build up those things by the involvement of members, the involvement of co-ops themselves. It's not to deprive the national apex, the regions, the sectors from their role. It's just to give a better legitimacy to the global community, ICA community. That's what I really believe. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Jean-Louis.
Thanks very much, Jean-Louis. Sebastian, please, you can pose question number 2 from the audience.
A second question, for which I would like to give you some details. Firstly, there are several questions on the different issues you have addressed quite broadly. I think that in the chat, people ask more specifications. You have chaired cooperatives or bodies for years. You have been members of regional bodies for years. And very concretely, which mechanism you would like to support very concretely? How can the ICA, if this should be its role, how can ICA support the development of cooperative on the ground, including in emerging countries? The question has been asked by an African member, but it has also been mentioned by Asian Pacific members. What role, very concretely, could play the ICA to support the development of cooperatives in the different countries, very concretely?
Thanks very much, Sebastian. For this question number 2, we will give the floor first to Melina, second Ariel, and third Jean-Louis. Melina, you have the floor, madam.
Thank you very much. This is a very important question. As I said before, developing countries or lower and middle income countries demonstrate real time the importance of the global cooperative business model for for sustainable development. It's very important that we engage and enable developing countries to utilize this business model to its fullest capacity. And the three ways I think the ICA can do this is through capacity building, to build the autonomy and agency at the country level to do the cooperative development so that it is genuinely owned and enabled at the grassroots. So extending capacity building techniques through partnership, through funding, and through mentorship is incredibly important. The second is mentorship. It's very important that larger, more established cooperatives around the world are enabled to partner to help developing countries through cooperative to cooperative development to leverage their success and be a business network. And we must try and use the ICA's credibility and influence to influence at the country level, the policymakers, the development organizations, governments, to make the cooperative business model the preferred model for business entrepreneurship in the developing country itself. This model itself, it can be a widely used entrepreneurship model to create lots of different ways for businesses to form, not just in the social sector, but in the mainstream economy, in the developing economy, so that the profits and the surpluses from cooperatives can be reinvested back into the economy to build the wealth at the country level.
Muchas gracias, Melina.
Thanks very much, Melina. Ariel, you have the floor, sir.
Es una pregunta.
Thanks very much, Manuel. Very interesting question, I must say. Much could be said in order to answer to this very broad question, but now I'm going to try to be brief and to the point in trying to answer this question. First, I believe that we need to create the necessary framework for the development of co-ops in emerging countries, developed countries. And I believe that the ICA needs to leverage on the regulatory frameworks and the fiscal frameworks that already exist. We need to engage in further dialogue with international bodies. When we assumed the mandate, we had no dialogue with the ILO. The conversations had been suspended, and to create new ties with the ILO was very, very challenging. But we were able to organize a joint seminar between the ILO and the Alliance in order to celebrate the 100th anniversary of this international body. Now we chair the COPAC, and the COPAC promotes the development of co-ops globally. With this expertise, with this know-how, we can set new regulatory frameworks and tax frameworks that promote the creation of co-ops. Secondly, we need to try to promote or foster cultural diversity and the savoir-faire that already exists in the different regions. We don't need to impose a foreign recipe to teach others cooperativism. No, I have visited over the past 4 years Africa 7 times. I've been able to travel to many different countries. I've visited many co-ops, producer co-ops, coffee co-ops. The coffee that we consume in Starbucks comes from an Ethiopia co-op. I have been able to witness firsthand some trailblazing housing co-ops. We visited Rwanda, and we saw what is being done there out on the field. And I've also visited Asia and was able to see how they have put in place some amazing care models, and in the Americas as well. There are many best practices. These best practices need to be fostered, needs to be promoted. And our key role has to do with building ties. And I have two proposals. First, it's very important that we are the civil diplomacy that contributes to government diplomacy. In our country, we have conducted a very interesting exercise. We've wanted all our embassies to open the co-ops to the sectors. And my second proposal is to create a commercial bureau or commercial network. The ICA is an international body that moves slowly, but perhaps we can help to create ties between companies, between co-ops, and that's what we have been doing over the past 4 years in order to build ties. We need to create this commercial network approach. And third, we need to demonstrate that co-ops can work hand in hand with governments, with the states. Of course, each party needs to be independent, but we need to enhance the synergies. It's very important that co-ops work strategically with governments, who at the end of the day are the ones who decide the public policies. In Argentina, we have a body that is co-managed between the government and co-ops. We have 7 directors, 4 belong to co-ops and mutuals. And this model has proved to be extremely successful over the past 30 years. We can perhaps replicate this kind of body, this kind of example, but always respecting the cultural diversity and savoir-faire of our movement. Apologies if I spoke too much, just a little bit. Jean-Louis, please.
Merci beaucoup. Sur ce terrain qui me tient beaucoup à cœur, j'ai pour ma part depuis 40 ans beaucoup agi dans les questions de développement. Je voudrais l'illustrer par exemple en rappelant tout ce que ma banque a fait en faveur par exemple de pays africains et en particulier par exemple le Mali. La première chose qui est donc importante, c'est que au sein de la communauté coopérative, ceux qui le souhaitent, ceux qui le peuvent, puissent donner du temps, donner de l'énergie. Donc la première chose que nous pourrions renforcer encore, qui a été aidée et qui a créé les conditions du partenariat avec la Commission européenne, c'est de créer un dispositif qui permet aux agences coopératives qui existent dans différents pays pour le développement coopératif de travailler ensemble, de créer une plateforme. Cette plateforme existe, il faut la renforcer, il faut lui donner de la vigueur, pour qu'elle ait de la visibilité vis-à-vis des institutions de développement intergouvernementales. Ça, c'est la première démarche. La deuxième sur laquelle la CIE doit, en tant qu'ACI, jouer un rôle important, c'est bien sûr trouver les moyens pour réduire les pays qui interdisent les coopératives. Parce que pour des raisons idéologiques, parfois pour des raisons de méconnaissance, dans un certain nombre de pays, dans un certain nombre de secteurs, il n'est pas possible de travailler sous le statut coopératif. Ceci ne doit pas être souhaitable. Il nous faut agir tous les jours pour réduire ces pays que j'appelle sur liste noire coopérative. Il ne faudrait plus avoir de liste noire coopérative. Alors, il faut le faire par la persuasion, et c'est ça, bien sûr, qui est important. Sur ce terrain-là, je tiens à saluer l'initiative qu'a prise la région Asie-Pacifique à conclure un accord de partenariat, par exemple avec les Émirats arabes unis, pour renforcer la question non seulement de la législation, mais aussi des
the
moyens,
legal
parce qu'on
framework,
peut
but
avoir
also the means,
une constitution,
because
une
you
loi
may
qui permet
have
les
a constitution,
coopératives,
a law
mais dans
which
les
allows
faits, ne pas laisser
cooperatives, but which
véritablement les moyens d'action.
in
Dernier
real life
point,
doesn't give
eh
any
bien, bien
means to
évidemment,
cooperatives. And
utiliser là
then
encore la
another point,
capacité de
we
notre
do
jeunesse.
need to
Notre
use the
jeunesse,
capacities,
elle est
the
beaucoup plus
abilities of our
internationalisée que
youth,
nous le
our
sommes,
youth,
nous,
which
en
is
tout cas pour ma
much more
génération.
international
Elle
than
sait
we, our
mieux que
generation,
d'autres
will
encore
ever be.
utiliser
They
des
know
langues
better
diverses et
than
variées,
anyone
et
else
tout ce que représente
languages
le
and
mouvement
everything
des jeunes coopérateurs me semble un excellent
which is
outil
represented
à
by the movement
utiliser
of
pour
young
contribuer
cooperatives should be
au
used
développement des coopératives dans
to
les pays en
develop
voie de développement.
cooperatives
J'en
in
ai une
developing
illustration. Hier
countries.
encore, je discutais
Yesterday,
avec Anna Aguirre,
I was
qui est
talking
donc
with
la
Ana
nouvelle
Aguirre, which is
représentante
our
des
new
coopérateurs
representative
au niveau mondial, qui est
at a
aujourd'hui au
global
Costa
level
Rica
for young
pour
cooperatives.
aller sur
She's
ce terrain
in
et
Costa
aider à faire
Rica
ces
on the
choses-là.
ground, and
Je crois que
she's
l'ACI doit soutenir
providing support
dans ce
there.
domaine
I think
l'action
that
des jeunes
we should
coopérateurs.
promote the
Voilà en
action
quoi
of
l'ACI peut être
youngsters,
utile,
and
en
this
étant
is
un
how
soutien
ICA can
et
be
pas du tout
useful.
en
It needs
étant
to be there
quelqu'un
to
qui
support.
impose des
It
modèles
shouldn't be there
préétablis.
to
Il faut laisser de
impose
la marge de manœuvre
pre-established
au
models.
secteur,
We
aux
need to give
régions.
leeway to
C'est
the
eux qui
sectors,
savent
to the
encore
regions,
plus que
to
d'autres
the
comment
industries,
il
because
faut
they know
faire et
better
avec
than
qui il
we
faut
do
faire. Merci.
with what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thanks very much, Jean-Louis. Now we're going to move on to question number 3. In this case, Melina will take the floor first, followed by Jean-Louis, last Ariel. Sébastien?
Alors, pour cette question, elle vient un peu d'être évoquée. Je vous promets,
this question
je sais bien
was
que
actually a tad
le
raised.
bientôt ancien représentant des jeunes de l'ACI, pour ceux qui ne me connaîtraient pas. Et on a reçu un peu plus de 4-5 questions concernant les jeunes. Jean-Louis vient de l'évoquer. Vous l'avez tous et toutes évoqué aussi un peu en introduction. C'est évidemment très heureux. Mais du coup, j'aurais souhaité un peu, je vais essayer de synthétiser les différentes questions qu'on a reçues sur cette question-là et vous donner peut-être l'opportunité d'approfondir. Comment est-ce que vous souhaitez travailler avec la jeunesse?
And explain how you wish to work with youth.
Aujourd'hui, il existe un
Nowadays,
représentante,
we have a
Anna
representative,
des jeunes coopérateurs qui siégera avec vous au conseil d'administration de l'ACI. Elle va vous proposer un plan d'action jeune qui sera discuté avec le comité jeunesse de l'ACI. Se pose la question de comment est-ce que vous envisagez le travail, les chantiers à voir, et au-delà de dire qu'il faut promouvoir les jeunes, d'après vous, quel serait un petit peu le niveau de priorité en termes de moyens, de ressources, de soutien qui pourrait être apporté, puisque, pour rappel, les comités disposent d'un petit budget de fonctionnement, mais quand il s'agit de mettre en place des actions, il faut que ça soit porté par l'ensemble de l'ACI. Les jeunes, sur les 4 dernières années, ont eu un certain nombre d'actions, de rencontres, de cartographie, de programmes de soutien et de développement. Pour celles et ceux qui assistent et qui veulent en savoir plus, tout est sur le site de l'ACI. J'imagine qu'en tant que candidat, vous en avez pris connaissance, vous l'avez constaté, ce qui a été déjà constaté en conseil d'administration. Quelles idées, quelles envies ça vous donne pour développer davantage et appuyer davantage le réseau de jeunes coopérateurs de l'ACI? Vous l'avez tous un peu évoqué, mais peut-être vous donner en 2 minutes chacun l'opportunité de creuser, d'émettre des idées de concrètement comment vous pourriez là aussi approfondir ce travail avec la jeunesse coopérative.
Thank you very much for the question, and I'm very pleased and welcome that there are younger cooperators on this call. That means that our business model is relevant to the existing and coming generations, past, present, and future, and emerging cooperators. So the first thing is that we need to take what you're saying and your strategy seriously into the ICA. That means it has to be embedded in the global strategy, so that it can be resourced by identifying that the youth pillar is part of the overall vision and strategy of the ICA embeds it in the future direction and ensures resources for what needs to be done. So taking the Youth Committee and its strategy seriously, embedding it in the global strategy and resourcing it is the first thing. There are two dimensions to engaging with younger cooperators in my view. One is the cooperators, the youth that are inside the movement, that are already engaged in, working for, or identifying with cooperatives. And for that, we need a very specific strategy, which should be informed and designed, co-designed with the Youth Committee. Then we have the group of youth that are outside of the movement. And we need a communication strategy, as I said before, that connects with young people and finds an alignment between their deep investment and their desire to engage with ethical businesses so that they can find the cooperative business model as a preferred model for engaging in their own economic and social development activities. I think it's critical that we get that piece right. We do need to listen to and engage with young people at this time of heightened concern for society and the environment. Younger people are aware that there are other ways of doing business, and our business model needs to be championed. We can see what young people have done for the climate movement. If not for young people, we would not be having the urgent conversation we need around the action on climate change without that movement that was started by young people. So we need to be emboldened by what you can do and what we can learn from you, but most importantly, make sure that we take it seriously and resource it.
Gracias. Jean-Louis, por favor.
Thank you. Jean-Louis, please.
Well, thank you very much for this question, which I already tackled. But let me bounce back on a couple of elements to be crystal clear. First of all,
je pense, c'est que donc sur les questions de développement,
on development, I think that we could
de la compétence et de la capacité
use the skills of
je l'ai dit par exemple sur les
even
questions d'objectifs du développement
and
durable.
on SDGs,
Je
I have
propose de
said
créer
it.
des cercles
I think
très
we should
ouverts
create open
d'échanges
circles
collaboratifs sur
so
les
that we
questions
can exchange and
d'objectifs de développement
cooperate
durable. Il y en
on
a
these SDGs.
17 et
There are
je propose
17
que donc
SDGs, and as I
chaque
have said,
cercle
each
soit animé par un membre du conseil
and every one of
d'administration
them could be
et
led
un
by a
jeune
member of the
coopérateur du
board
monde sur un
and
pied d'égalité
a
parce que je ne
youngster,
pense
and
pas
they should
que
be on an equal
l'âge
footing
soit
because I
le
don't think
facteur qui
age
détermine la
should
capacité à être un
define
bon
well the
animateur.
capacity of being a
Troisième
good
point,
moderator.
la question
Third point,
de l'éducation.
education.
Et pour moi, la construction d'une démarche d'éducation coopérative passe par la capacité à
a
construire les
curriculum
programmes
on cooperative.
avec
We
les
need
jeunes
to develop
coopérateurs.
those
Pour vous
curriculum with
l'illustrer,
youth.
au Global Innovation Co-op Summit
At
qui
the
se tiendra le
Global
26 et
Innovation
27
Corp Summit
septembre à
on
Paris,
the 26th
nous
and
avons une
27th of
session
September in
qui
Paris,
sera
we
dans
will
la
have a
question,
session
c'est
where
comment
we will
être un
tackle a
meilleur
question,
patron.
how
Et
can
nous
we
allons
be a better
demander
boss?
à des jeunes
And we will
coopérateurs
ask
sur la tribune avec
youth
des directeurs, des dirigeants coopératifs
from
de nous
cooperatives
expliquer comment
to explain
nous,
us
lorsque nous sommes en
how
situation
we
d'être de
could do
dirigeants, nous
better
pouvons être des
whenever
meilleurs
we manage,
patrons.
how we can
Je
be
ne pense
better
pas
bosses.
que les questions de transmission soient
I don't
toujours dans le
think that
sens
the issue
descendant
of
des plus
sharing
âgés
should
vers les
always
plus
be
jeunes, mais
top
les jeunes
down.
ont
I
beaucoup de choses
think
à nous apprendre.
that
Le
bottom up
dernier
from the
point que
young,
j'illustrerai sur ce terrain-là,
from the youth
c'est
to
la
the
question des
old.
nouvelles
There is a lot
technologies,
to learn
des
as well
nouveaux modes
on new
d'échange.
technologies,
Je
on
plaide
means
pour
of
que nous
exchanging.
développions un
I am
domaine
in
wiki
favor of
coopératif.
developing
Je pense que
a
nos jeunes
tool
doivent pouvoir prendre
for
le
cooperation, and
leadership
I think
dans
that
ce
youth
domaine
should
parce que ça
be
repose
leaders
sur, bien sûr,
here
la
because,
connaissance,
well,
la
we need knowledge,
capacité
we need
et
the
surtout la
capacities,
capacité
and
à
what's more,
entraîner tout un chacun à faire que demain, comme il y a d'autres domaines de wiki, nous ayons un grand domaine wiki à l'échelon coopératif, à l'échelon mondial. Donc, moi, je suis convaincu que la jeunesse peut jouer un rôle considérable. Je pense que je l'ai démontré dans mon pays, je l'ai démontré au niveau européen. Il nous faut poursuivre. On a commencé, il y a encore du travail à faire, mais avec l'engagement de tous, nous y arriverons. Merci beaucoup.
With the commitment of all of us, we'll make do. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Jean-Louis. Y termina
Thank you very much, Jean-Louis. And Ariel, please, could you address this question? Thank you very much, Manuel. Well, I believe that our first proposal, first thing we need to show is a consistency between what we say and what we do. If we say we want to listen to the youth, we must listen to what they need to say. If we want to listen to them, we must give them the floor. That's the first thing we need to do. In Latin America, the youth have a say at the board of the American cooperatives for many years. This is a concern I've heard from youth from other regions. So first thing, give them a seat at the table and listen to them. Sebastian, Ana, Hilda, Oliresa. They're all young people who can speak to this. Every time I've met with them, I listened a lot and I've spoken little. I've listened to their claims and I've acted accordingly. And we've worked strong together, first in Argentina, proposing a young woman to preside over the youth network, Gabriela Lufa, and then we promoted Sebastian, or supported Sebastian to have this network turn into a committee, which happened recently. Now, listening to the youth, giving them a seat at the table is not all. They must be able to take decisions. They must be empowered to take decisions. And this doesn't really have to do with things related to the youth necessarily, but general matters. Otherwise, we're curbing their development. This empowerment must be broad. It must encompass all matters discussed at the Alliance. And that's why my governance proposal includes the youth, the women in the decision-making, in the planning, in the management of the decision-making process. That is a very open path. Unfortunately, we make the mistake of thinking that this is the bench of future players. As we say in Argentina, if we invite the youth to come and play a match because they love playing soccer, but then when they come to play with our team, we tell them, just go onto the bench, wait for a few years, and then you will be able to join us on the field and play football. Well, nobody's going to be precisely excited at that prospect. They must play the game. Maybe we shouldn't pressure them to score a goal, but they should definitely play along. And as part of that, many young people play an important role in their co-ops, and we are just undermining their potential if we only think about them for certain matters linked to youth matters. No, the youth should work on all points of the agenda: climate change, decent work, creating the necessary conditions for society to avoid conflicts, all the matters that we work on, responsible production and consumption. They do this in their co-ops already, and we just need to open the door to them so that they can work with us in all of those regards. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ariel. Sebastian, Gretchen, I have a question.
Quedan 10 minutos.
It is not a life or death question, but let's say we have 10 minutes. Maybe we have time for another question and we go slightly over time. Would that be okay? Or we ask the question and candidates must address the question in 2 minutes?
I think we have time for one more question, and we received one during it's very, I think it's called for a very short answer. Alors, la question est
so the question is the following, and it is interesting because it also reminds that the ICA is not only a representative body, but also a body with wage earners, with a director, with representatives which are key for all members in all regions. And with that mandate, there will probably be changes for the pathway ICA will follow. So a question here is on you as chair. How do you intend to work with the staff, the wage earners of ICA? What role will you give to them and management? How will you go ahead? So if you have 2 minutes each, I think this could be interesting. How your chairmanship will allow us to go ahead. Over to you.
Gracias, Sebastián. 2 minutos, por favor.
Thank you, Sebastian. 2 minutes. Ariel, please. You start, and then Melina, and finally John Luis. Thank you very much, Manuel. Well, this is a very hard question to address in 2 minutes. I am a candidate and a current chair, so I understand this question is targeting certain issues. This is a person-centered movement, and that is the key to me. Nothing will be more important than the people within this movement, be them cooperativists or be them cooperativists who are working actively within the alliance and helping leaders do their job. The first 3 months of my term, as soon as I was elected in 2017 in Malaysia, I spent them in Brussels to learn, to know better the members of the staff and have a more smooth exchange with them and all European stakeholders. A new general manager, a new chair, some colleagues joining the staff and others with experience. And then came the pandemic. We had communication problems. We had problems with some people, some individuals, and we've tried to find solutions. We've tried to find those solutions by respecting people. And for that, we have an HR committee that has worked hard even during the pandemic. The answer going forward is that we need a smooth exchange between the board and the staff and the general manager. And that's why I am proposing a more representative, dynamic governance. We must understand that people are important, but none of us will stay here forever. Me presiding the institution, members of the board, the staff, we all will come and go, and the institution remains, and it will still have to be a person-centered organization. Thank you. Thank you very much, Gabriel. Melina, please.
Thank you. Thank you, cooperators. I have come to you tonight with an agenda that is about change. We need fresh leadership, and that is across all aspects of the organization. And that's also to give due credit to the incredible hard work of everyone at the ICA. But we do need change and fresh leadership. I run a peak body with a small but highly committed and motivated team. The reason that I believe we work so well and we deliver at a very high professional level is because we know what the shared vision is, we know what the strategy is, it is given to us by the board, and we deliver on the strategy, and we are held accountable for delivering on the strategy, which brings me back around to the role of the board. The chair of the board gives direction. Their role is direction and leadership. The board must own the strategy and it must be executed by the team. The team in any organization, but we're talking about the ICA now. So the strategy being owned by the board and executed by the team and delivering to the highest professional level because of a shared vision with people being held accountable for delivering on that strategy on behalf of the members is what is critical in my view. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Melina. Por último,
Thank you, Melina. Jean-Louis, please.
Thank you very much. Here, I think that my personal experience, which led me to animate and lead many structures with groups of members, small and bigger teams, sometimes over 1,000 people, I want to say that first of all we need to trust each other. Trust those who are committed, those who are members, because if they are there, it's because they share our convictions and there is no reason whatsoever to doubt them. Then, obviously, each and every one needs to respect the elected members of the board, and it is very important for the chairwoman to push a vision forward and to allow exchanges between board members, members of the GA, and wage earners. It's through exchanges that we can make progress. Secondly, I am not used to judging people on their opinions, but rather on their actions. So we need to be responsible and try to give clear targets to teams under the direction of a general manager. When targets are accomplished, we need to be grateful and be able to say thank you and recognize the work which has been carried out. Whenever targets are not reached, we need to take stock of the situations and sometimes take more difficult decisions. Finally, I ask for respect of people in the widest sense of the term. Staff needs to respect board and board needs to respect staff. There are no bad remarks, no bad comments, but we all need to be there for the community and for our members of ICA, for all the cooperatives. And this is why I have said that it's thanks to the union that we are strong, the union between cooperatives, but also the union of all those who work for cooperatives, and more specifically those who work for ICA. That's how I think we can answer this question. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Jean-Louis. Muchísimas gracias, Ariel.
Thank you, Jean-Louis, Ariel, and Melina, Gretchen, and the entire team, interpreters, Sebastian. Thank you very much to all the colleagues who have logged on to the webinar and asked questions, and thank you for your interest. This webinar has been recorded. It will be made available through the Alliance website up until the elections at least. And I must say, I'm very happy I didn't have to take the floor. My apologies for that mistake once again. Thank you very much, and I'm very happy with the smooth work today by everyone. Thank you very much, and see you in Seville.